Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. We'll go ahead and get started here in just a few moments. And apologies for my voice, I am still recovering from COVID, but I hope everyone is having a wonderful day so far. I hope you are enjoying the beautiful sunshine I know that we are having here in Connecticut, which has been wonderful so far. So use the chat button to let us know where you're either viewing or listening from today. I'm coming to you live, like I said, from very sunny Connecticut. We have been getting some crazy rain though lately. So welcome everyone. I hope everyone's having a great day and we'll get started here in just a few moments. Hello from New York, welcome. Hello from the Bay Area, hello. Hello from Colorado. From Utah, welcome everyone today. Ohio, Atlanta, New Jersey, Florida, welcome. Tennessee, Andover, Massachusetts, San Francisco, Boston, Seattle. We've got a little bit from everybody. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So again, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. My name is Haley, and I'll be your host as we discuss today's topic, which is transforming IT into the enterprise innovation engine. This is brought to you by Catchpoint and hosted by VIB. Today's webinar is going to be about 45 minutes long. We'll save the last 15 minutes or so for Q&A. We ask that you use that Q&A button at the bottom of your window to ask any and all questions, and we'll get to those within the Q&A at the end of the presentation. And if you have your pop-up blocker on, please double check to ensure that it is turned off, as we will have some great poll questions during today's webinar. And now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker for today, Gerardo. Gerardo, you may take it away.
Thank you. Good morning, afternoon, evening. I see somebody from Nigeria. So thank you for your time. I hope this is useful for you. I am Gerardo Dada. I'm the field CTO for Catchpoint Systems. And I've been involved with IT, web technologies, internet, and the cloud in general for about 25 years, maybe more actually, 30 years since 1995. So today we're going to talk about how can we make IT the enterprise innovation engine, which is something that most IT departments want to be, and it's a big challenge. This is not going to be an ad for a company or anything like that, so I'm hoping the information I'll share is going to be useful for you. So the first thing is that there's many stats. This one is from Deloitte. The IT wants to be in the innovation game. Innovation is oftentimes done through technology. And at the same time, a lot of IT departments are struggling with innovating because they spend 80% of their time just keeping the lights on, managing stuff. So let's look at some history. I started in IT long time ago. And so in the early days, I remember my first job in the corporate. I was in a company where you had local email share, probably using Exchange, small business server, you have file share, you have print server, you have a couple applications, all of them are local. So, and people worked in the office, right? So connectivity was local only. And so IT was the team that deployed some of these applications. There were only a handful of them, and they were the guardians of uptime, meaning nobody cared about IT unless something went wrong. And unfortunately, that's still how sometimes IT is perceived. And it sucks because, obviously applications have gone more complex and things go down more often and things become more, we have more and more applications all the time. And IT is not getting not only the credit for all the hard work they get, people only think about them as a cost center. Today, every company is a software company, meaning everything we do in a company is supported by a digital experience or is digital in itself. All the business processes are digital. When I was at Rackspace back in 2010, and we were in the early days of cloud, we were thinking about what were the most useful use cases for cloud, and we made a long list. Surprisingly, accounting software was one of the top. E-commerce was right at the top of that because of the elasticity of cloud, etc. And I thought restaurants would be very much at the bottom because why would you need a cloud if you're a restaurant, right? Everything happens offline. But today, you cannot find a restaurant on Yelp if your internet is not working. You cannot get to the restaurant using Google Maps. If you get to the restaurant, you cannot scan the QR code. You cannot place the order in the restaurant management system. you cannot present the bill, and you cannot charge for the meal. So if there's no connectivity, no internet, no digital systems, you might as well close the restaurant. And my point to that is that if you think about uh, an offline process like, I don't know, boarding a plane, checking in a restaurant, filing a claim for the insurance company, everything is digital nowadays, meaning everything is software based, everything is supported by digital technology. It's critical for everything. So in the past, keeping an eye on was focusing on operational excellence, basically uptime. It was very reactive. You only called IT when you hired somebody, you fired somebody, or when there was a problem that you needed to solve. And therefore, IT was a cost center, meaning you needed to minimize it. There was no glory, there's no strategic contribution. The only thing they did is keep things working, and you only thought about them when things went bad. But today, with everything being digital, IT is in the business of innovation. They need to support, enable, and even drive business strategy, because they can support not only user experience, and user can be both customer as well as employee, ensure digital processes, and enabling innovation. And this sounds easy and logical, but the fact is that over 50% of the workforce today, the digital workforce that work in front of a computer, suffer what Gardner calls digital friction, meaning some things don't work. Sometimes, you've heard the thing about, Teams is not working for me, or WebEx is not launching, or I can't log into the system, or my Wi-Fi connection is bad. The most common example I have is, I don't know why, it seems like every time you rent a car, there is this thing about, hey, sorry, my computer is slow, right? And that happens almost every time when you're interacting with somebody in service. So IT has the opportunity to be the driver, the enabler, but also educate the business on how to enhance that overall strategy. So I want to talk about 4 things that are happening in IT. The first one is complexity explosion, right? So IT was supposed to be simpler, and there were a lot of technologies 25 years ago and 20 years ago, and then there was like component-based development that was supposed to make application development easier, and then there was automation that was supposed to make IT even easier, and the cloud was supposed to make everything self-service and automatically happen, and now AI is supposed to make everything better and automatic. But the reality is, every time we introduce one of this technology, any of these technologies, it just raises the bar of what's possible with IT and enhances the complexity. Today we have Kubernetes, multi-cloud, hybrid, 5G, SASE technology, security, bunch of stuff. So that's the first thing that people need to work with. The second one is AI ops potential. And I think it's a big buzzword. And I call it a buzzword at the moment because there's a lot of AI watching, a lot of comments around AI, what AI can do and cannot do, and relatively limited real world benefit still from all the AI investment. I'm not saying it's not there or it's not going to be there, but I think there's the point here, the word potential points to the idea that there's a very large expectation for IT to save money, improve uptime, and improve processes with AI. So the business is going to expect IT to step up to the plate and to see these benefits quickly. Obviously, there's remote and hybrid work. There's a big challenge, meaning people are not in the office, meaning you cannot take a look at PCs. The help desk is getting more complex. People are accessing applications from all over the planet. Companies have gone completely distributed. Catchpoint is one of those companies. The day I started with a company over 2 years ago, we closed our office in New York City, and people moved out. One of our founders lives in LA, another one lives in Florida. I'm in Austin, Texas. We get together every now and then, but we're completely distributed. We don't have an office. And then last, the pressure to optimize, which is always there. And the pressure to optimize comes from multiple places. One, there's a lot of legacy technology that needs to be modernized, right? Like there's companies that are still using Sidescope and mainframes and things that need to be modernized, moved out. There's a lot of pressure for consolidation. IT has too many tools. And there's also pressure to deliver savings. Like every company is trying to save money in every business unit. So these are the 4 main things that we see as creating pressure for IT to deliver more and deliver better. So how can they do that? How can IT change from being that reactive cost center to becoming really a business partner? And in this presentation, I'm going to offer four steps. I'm going to cover them super quickly right now, and then we'll go into each one of them. The first one is a focus on resilience and trust, right? Resilience is the ability to provide that uptime that we've talked about, and the ability to withstand all the challenges today in IT and deliver systems that you can always have up. We'll explore more what resilience means and how you can actually deliver trust, not only internally, but for all your stakeholders, your customers, your partners, etc. Second one is to align the business and IT using application tiering methodology. The third one is embracing digital experience maturity model. Since we agree that digital experience is what drives the business, there's a process that we've been developing over multiple years. That is, again, it's not vendor specific, but helps you move from being reactive, being business led, and after being proactive. And then building a digital operations center. And you see, there's a lot of focus on digital because at the end of the day, a fundamental concept that goes across this thinking is that the goal of IT is not to run a server, right? A server is just a means to an end. The goal of IT is not to reduce, I don't know, CPU utilization below 60% or to deploy databases in next. No, the goal of IT is for the applications that the business requires to run well, to be performant, and to be available. And that's what that concept of resilience is around. So part of the challenge here is that many organizations still have, when we talk about resilience, they still have too many war rooms. So you should have in your computer and in your screen a question asking you, do you still have too many war rooms? Is it still a massive disruption, the number of war rooms and disruption to the IT team? Is it something like, yeah, you have a few, but you feel okay? Or is it not a problem or you don't know? And so I would appreciate if you can take a second and just click on your answer, because I think it'll be interesting to see how bad it is. And in general, most people we talk to, they say we have too many war rooms. Obviously, the ideal number will be 0. So can we see the results from the poll? All right, so I'm moving the results here, and you can see 58% of people, they have some war room problems. 16% don't know, and for 20%, only for 20% of people is not a problem. Okay, so let's move on and talk about most IT departments are still struggling with outages, right? And that's kind of the most disruptive form of digital disruption. And I have here a few companies just to show that every large company, and I'm as you can see here, is Cloudflare, Fastly, Akamai. I picked 3 CDNs just to show that the companies that power the internet, the ones that really understand the internet the best, the ones that have a lot of engineers and very smart people, they're still having some of this incident. So the question is not if it's going to happen to you, but when is it going to happen to you? How long is it going to last? Or how often are you going to see some of these incidents? How bad is they're going to be? What is going to be the impact? And then will somebody get fired? Who's going to be accountable? Just in the last week, we've seen incidents from Microsoft Azure, from ServiceNow, and from a bunch of different companies. We have a site, catchpoint.com/outages, where you can see in real time all the outages, and I've never seen it be blank, meaning there's always an outage going on. And part of the challenge of this is caused by this thing that we call the complexity of the internet stack. So just like you have an application stack that has multiple components, code, web front end, databases, servers, networks, etc., storage systems, that's very well understood, and there's plenty of monitoring technologies. There's an internet stack that supports now applications and services today. Everything we do is distributed, it's multi-cloud, it's hybrid, whether people are connected from multiple places, your applications are hosted in different places, the components of those applications are in different places. And even corporate applications are often made of multiple components that they are distributed in different clouds and different locations. And that means that what seems to be a single application from a user perspective might have multiple clouds, multiple APIs, which means obviously multiple DNS systems required to work, multiple CDNs, BGP, which is a border gateway protocol, which a lot of people don't even know that exists. Facebook learned a hard lesson 3 years ago when everything went down. Instagram, WhatsApp, and Facebook went down for 8 hours because their BGP system went down. They could not even go into their data centers. And of course, all the protocols and network technologies, both internet outside of your network and inside your network, right? SASE, WAN, Backbone, a lot of new technology like ECN, L4S, Quick, etc., MQTT brokers for IoT applications. My point here is that there are a lot of internet technologies that are having a significant impact on systems today. And in spite of having auto-scaling group and self-healing applications and all those things, the applications that are so complex, built by so many places, deployed from multiple locations, that is critical to understand what is the internet stack supporting each one of these applications. And the impact of not doing that is what is the impact to trust, right? So the impact to trust comes from brand. Obviously, when a site is down, when you have an incident that impacts the business, there's impact on revenue, both from a system going down, not being able to charge money in the moment, but also losing customers for the long term. And there's also an operational cost and excellence. Like, when you have a war room and you have all your smartest people going into a conference room and disrupting their day and stopping everything they need to do, waking people up, it has a very high operational cost to do that. And so Gartner research was talking about the risk impact coming from a very similar place: brand, reputation, financial, legal as well, safety in case of life-critical applications, like in the case of a hospital or some other incidents, and end user experience as well, right? So very similar view from Gartner. So we call digital resilience or internet resilience the ability to withstand all this complexity, to manage this risk, and to deliver the right digital experience for users. And so there are 4 components to resilience. I think it's a good analogy to think about a store, right? If you're going to a store, the first thing is like, well, can you actually get to the store, right? If the store is closed, then it doesn't work. Is it performance? Is it fast or is it slow? Well, the performance means, well, maybe you can get into the store, but there's a line of people and it's not moving, then it's as good as it's not working. And then availability, meaning are all the capabilities of that store available and functional? Again, you might be able to go to the store, but if the cash registers are not working, it doesn't do you any good. And then reliability means, can you trust it will be there all the time? It will work every time you go to the store, right? Like if you think about your coffee shop, you want your coffee shop to be there for you every morning to power your day. And if you go to the coffee shop in a week and it's closed 2 days, you might, the second time it's closed, you might want to think about another coffee shop you might be able to go, right? Or if the performance is low. And the thing is, in the digital world, loyalty disappears very quickly. So we think about resilience in these 4 ways, and this is useful in how do you evaluate the resilience that you're delivering for the business, for the IT systems that power it. And so that covers resilience, which is the first step, right? Like focus on resilience and the trust, both internal to your users and external to your customers and partners. The second step to becoming a strategic business partner is to align application tiering with IT business priorities. And here we'll have another question. Do you know if your application, how many applications your IT department manages across your enterprise? Here's another poll for you. How many applications does your own IT department manage, right? This is just to give us an idea of the complexity. If you can take a minute to click quickly, and if we can show the results. Let's show the results now. And as you can see, it's hundreds And well, if you add 19% is over 1,000, right? Managing 1,000 applications is very complex. If you need to think about monitoring, reporting, updating them constantly, consolidation, etc., that's a daunting task. So how do you do that? And so there's this concept called application tiering, and that basically means that you can pick 3 tiers, 4 tiers, 7 tiers. It doesn't really matter, right? So here's a model that shows 4 different tiers, and just grouping your application based on what is the level of criticality for your business. This is a best practice, right? So the tier 1 applications can be revenue generating, critical for business operations. Tier 4 are mostly internal only. They support productivity and they're important, but they're not critical. The key here to put them in the right tier is to understand what is the impact of an outage, right? What happens if tier 1 application goes down? Then you start getting calls. You call a war room. You get a call from your CEO. In the case of Facebook, well, all of those applications went down. It was not only a tier 1 incident, but actually the board of directors was calling Zuckerberg and asking him for not only what was the problem and how he's going to make sure that's not going to happen again. And go down to tier 4, maybe it's not that impactful if the application goes down for a couple hours. So here's an example, right? If you're on an e-commerce business, if you're not on retail, your e-commerce platform is probably mission critical. If you're on B2B, Salesforce is going to be business critical, maybe not mission critical. You have like maybe an HR application, right? Or employee benefits can be deferrable, fourth tier, right? You have a site supporting your holiday party. If it goes down for a couple of hours or even for a day or two, like it's going to be okay. So to evolve on this process, on this thinking of the application tiers, let's go into a poll and ask you about, are you familiar, two-part question, are you familiar with this concept of RPO and RTO? It's a concept that's usually related to storage systems, but applies broadly. And then if you're familiar with that, maybe are you applying it, or you are using some application, similar set of metrics that applies to your business. So if you can take a second and answer your question, and if we can see the results, give us an idea of, there you go. So 33% have a similar system, 25% is familiar, and so most people are familiar. Only 6%, 9% is not familiar. They don't know, which I don't know, could be either you don't know if you're really familiar, you don't know how it's being used. So all right, let's cover that topic quickly. RTO is, again, mostly for disaster recovery, usually for standby systems and storage. RTO is basically established as the maximum acceptable downtime for a system, right? So how long between the time that a disaster happens and you actually recover and you're back online. That's RTO. An RPO is recovery point objective, which is basically if you have a set of data coming in, a set of processes, how much of that data is acceptable. And this varies by application, right? So most companies that have a tier system, they might have RTO and RPO objectives by definition, by application or by tier. So if we go back to that table, you can see that the resilience requirements that we've added now to the table go from low to high, and then you have both an SLA and an RTO objective, right? Like tier 4 application can go down for 2 hours. Maybe in your case could be 8 hours, right? Tier 1, maybe it's 5 minutes. You might have applications that require a recovery time of even less than that. Unfortunately, it's really hard to recover in 5 minutes. That means you need to identify that there's a problem, find the root cause, find how to fix it, and validate the fixes in place all within 5 minutes. It's a very daunting challenge. But this model helps bring down those thousands of hundreds of applications into maybe you have 20 tier 1 applications. You have maybe 100 business critical applications, and you have a bunch on the bottom. So that helps you focus and helps you report to the business how you're doing in terms of that SLA and how you're supporting the business in just maintaining uptime for those. All right, so we talked about resilience and trust and tiering, and now the third point is going to be about the digital experience maturity model. So in monitoring, when you're trying to build this application, get to those 5 minutes of um, uh, resilience, or then 4 nines, 5 nines, there are companies in different stages of maturity, right? The first stage is basically you're not monitoring, you're not, and this can vary by application. Then stage two is more reactive, where you have some ability to detect and restore. And unfortunately, this is where most organizations exist, right? And this is very infrastructure and systems focused. When you're on the left side, you're closer to being a traditional, old-style, reactive IT department that is seen as a cost center. And then as you start moving to the right side, that's when things starting getting more interesting. Stage three, you are proactive. You have system level subjective. You start tracking all the results. You have what's called a blame-free environment, where you don't have the network team and the application team pointing fingers at each other and trying to find blame. Just trying to find what happened and how do we prevent this from happening again. Being proactive means that you're going to try to prevent problems from happening, and you're going to try to catch problems before the users complain to minimize the impact to the business. And then stage four is really when you get value led, when you have an internet performance monitoring driven design, you have AI overlays and technologies, you have a completely transparent culture, all the data is open for everybody. There's a culture of continuous improvement. The operations are measured not by the processes or by the what's urgent right now, but what is the outcome for the business. You have this mission of unified ops, DevOps, SecOps, etc. And so your value and your outcomes are the drivers for the business, right? So it's not about uptime, as you can see on the left. It's not about fixing a problem or lowering costs. It's like, how do I, as an IT department, maximize revenue, optimize the digital experience of users, of customers? How do I protect the brand? How do I achieve the resilience by reducing the service impact? How do I improve the productivity of the workforce that requires all these applications to work? And how do I ultimately reduce the digital friction of my users? And so to do the maturity model assessment, typically you have an assessment of the ecosystem, you look at implementation, and you continuously assess, you keep getting better and better and closing those gaps, identifying what are the challenges of a business, and continuously trying to move further and further to the right? So you're not necessarily in stage three, you're probably stage 3.15, and then next month maybe you can move to stage 3.2, etc. So it's an ongoing process of reassessing where each part of your IT department is in this maturity model so that you can move forward. And so if you look at the details behind the maturity model, then there are things that could be looked at from an application perspective, internet service delivery perspective, infrastructure perspective, network experience perspective, workforce experience. And all this data and all this information is centralized in a system that has a correlation engine, dashboards, alerts, processes, analytics, SLO tracking, SLA tracking based on your budgets, but also XLO, experience level objectives. And this data is used to drive business decisions and to show how you're driving the business, right? So you have multiple metrics that you're capturing, but you're more focused on the value of the IT systems are bringing to the business in enabling those digital experiences. And so the maturity score is a combination of the technology use case, network application, website, etc. And by the way, application experience means APIs and web services and third-party components, etc. And with what we call the resiliency pillar, right? Reachability, functional availability, performance, and reliability. There's a saying that's been around for maybe 10 years that slow is the new down, right? So a website that does not respond within 7 seconds is considered just as bad as one that doesn't work at all. So when you combine all these scores by each functional area across the resilience pillars, you end up with a score, and you have different maturity levels based on those each one of those technology aspects or resilience aspects that give you an overall score. that then you can work on improving. Hopefully it identifies, in this case, the performance is where you're suffering the most. So that's probably the area where you need to focus the most. And in terms of technology area, you have application and website experience to focus on to bring your maturity to the next level. And so the goal is to move from, again, unmonitored and passive, where you're barely being able to react, and people know about downtime because of Twitter, or downtime, or people complaining. And you'd be surprised about the number of large companies that have mission critical systems. I was talking to the CIO of one of the largest pharmacy chains in the United States, and I asked him, how would you know if all your stores here in Texas lost their connectivity to your insurance carrier, so they could not fill any prescriptions anymore? And he said, like, I would not know. Like, I would only know based on complaints, maybe a day or two later. So they're unmonitored, passive. And it's surprising that in 2024, we still have critical systems in that situation. Proactive, you are more, you're able to catch things, and the moment an error happens, you catch it almost instantaneously and you fix it. And then value-led means that your system, your pharmacy in this case, you have a confidence that your users are not only being able to fill their prescriptions, but pay and get all the digital capabilities they need. And then IT is brought to the table as a way to how to actually improve those processes. What other capabilities can IT drive for us in terms of customer experience? What kind of efficiencies and connectivities on improvements with the third parties and our technology partners we can bring to improve that process overall? So that's the maturity model, right? So we talked about resilience, steering, and the maturity model. And the last part is building a digital operations center. So the idea is that once you've instrumented all this technology and you understand how technology drives the business, then your dashboard is less about, again, CPU utilization, or what is your throughput and your connectivity to the cloud, or what are the alerts of things that are broken right now, and more like, imagine like a digital operations center that shows you everything that's happening in your company from a technology perspective, from a digital experience perspective. Because again, if a user in Texas is not able to fill their prescription and they're upset, you cannot make money and you're at risk of losing that customer forever. There are plenty of options, right? There's another pharmacy across the street. There's Capsule. Now there's Amazon Pharmacy, and there's just so many options for users that if you don't deliver a perfect experience, they can go away. And if you call IT, it's like, well, my server shows everything green. My alerts show that there's no problem. It's basically a problem where IT is not even aware of the customer experience challenges of the users. So the concept of a digital operations center, similar to a NOC, which is obviously network, or SOC, security, it's like if we agree that digital operations, digital processes, and software is the lifeblood of a modern company, wouldn't it make sense to have a doc where you can see how are your internal applications enabling your workforce? How is it the health of IT in general? Can all my employees use the software they need? Our branches and on these pharmacies having the right connectivity? Our websites performing fast? Is our connectivity and APIs to all these third-party systems, pharmacies, and transaction processing, or even on your website, right? Are all those things working properly? We looked at CNN as an example. The CNN website has hundreds of digital components to load, right? From tag management to loading fonts from one place to a CDN for some of the graphics to videos, etc. It's surprising that the websites can load in 5 seconds when you think that there's usually hundreds of different things coming from different parts in the internet. We have a blog post on our website about an incident we caught in December, where Adobe Tag Manager, which is a very common thing for websites, went down. And the companies, the organizations that were looking at this digital operations center were able to catch it as a dependency immediately and then turn it off so it wouldn't impact their business and continue working, serving the business. Whereas the organizations that were not paying attention to the third party, didn't have the right monitoring in place, they were not thinking about digital experience, basically started getting complaints, starting seeing the impact of this downtime on their website. We're talking about multi-billion-dollar companies in this case. They call a war room. Adobe was not even publishing this on their website or on their Twitter feed or on their status page. And they had to spend an hour or two just identifying the problem and just turning it off. As you know, if you're in IT, 90% of the game is finding the root cause, right? Mean time to innocence or mean time to identification. So what we built at Catchpoint, and this is the only kind of selling or commercial slides, like the system we built for this, we're not the only one. There's one or two other companies that do similar things, is we have a global set of collectors that captures everything about the internet, everything about end user experience, API experience, digital experience across the internet through thousands of vantage points around the entire world. With different types of telemetry that is then collected and analyzed and is presented in a way that is shown by either a global map, status updates on applications, SLA and XLO forecast and monitoring, and then an internet stack map that shows all the dependencies that impact a business. And the goal for this system, again, is not to see what is the performance of an individual server, or like the philosophy of log management is let's capture all the data, as many terabytes of data as we can, and good luck finding the root cause later, and let's store it for a long time. But the goal of this is basically resilience, right? Reachability, availability, performance, reliability, and to extent that is possible, automation. And so the idea is that if you have this digital operations center with Catchpoint or any other technology that gives you this, one, you can identify, because you're looking at it from an end user perspective, you can identify the paper costs, the digital friction, the things that are upsetting customers and end users, not only the big failures. It's 100% actionable because you can see everything that is impacting the user, not only from the user perspective, but as it traverses the internet from ISPs and CDNs and backbone connectivity, front-end connectivity, your internal network, even down to your code traces. So there's less finger pointing and there's no opinion or even a false positive. And it's all proactive, right? Because you're monitoring this in the case of synthetics, you're doing this simulating users, simulating applications. In the case of RUM, you're seeing real users. And then you have these experience cores that are using AI to show you what is the ideal experience you need to deliver to your customers in London? What is the experience you need to bring on your ServiceNow application or SAP Concur? Therefore, where does your IT need to focus on? What are the things you need to pay attention to, and what are the things that really need immediate attention from your IT department? So again, it's less focused on servers and systems and more focused on experience core. So again, at the end of the day, the goal is migrating from the keeping the lights on system to an IT innovation system that is focused on the digital user experience, that assures the digital processes and all the processes in the business that are supported by digital processes are working and are working well. They're resilient, right? Again, they're performant, available, reliable, etc. And you're enabling innovation, because once you do all those things and you agree with the business, what are your top applications that you need to focus on? What are your SLAs and experience level objectives? And you deliver on those, and you deliver a digital operations center that is helping the business understand how information and data is flowing, how the systems are enabling the business. You get a seat at the table to innovate. So I was looking just a few weeks ago at Ernst & Young, and they were talking about the vital role that CIOs are going to play with technology, with the end user and future innovation in mind. And this was very related to the presentation I was preparing for today. And they talked about 6 actions. First action, focus on the customer and client experience, right? It's less about the system, more about the experience. Use analytics and AI for deeper visibility and insights, right? We talked about that as well. Modernize IT with cloud services for efficiency and keyword resilience, right? Increase flexibility by nurturing digital ecosystem. It talks about the complexity and the interdependencies, not only your stuff that you need to care about as an IT department, it's all the external dependencies that impact your business. Develop and secure an advanced talent pool, it's critical. But also tied to that is using systems that are smart enough, yet you don't have to have the smartest people on the planet to be able to find things and fix things. And then manage technology risk and maintain trust, right? So it's connected also to the trust factor. So I was I found it very interesting that Ernst & Young was talking about some of the exact same topics that I was referring to. So that covers the presentation for today. And my last question is for Paul. If you're interested in learning more about Catchpoint's IPM platform and how we can help your organization align with the business. So some of the technology we shared today. And if you're not, absolutely fine. If you just want the slides, we'll make sure you get a copy of them. We're not going to share the results of the polls today, so we can keep them so we can follow up later. And with that, we can open to any questions and answers from the audience. So first, again, thank you for your time. I appreciate that all the people that were here when we started the presentation are still here. So hopefully this was useful. I tried to make this useful for everybody and not trying to sell you anything a lot, at least. So if any questions, you can type them in the chat. And I'll be happy to answer them to the best of my ability. Haley, do we have any questions?
So we do have a couple in the Q&A. The first one is, what are some examples of companies that are doing this today?
Great. So we work with a team of IKEA, the Swedish furniture maker, that is not even called monitoring anymore. It's called operational insights, right? So monitoring means like you're trying just to look at the internals. Operational insights implies you're trying to understand how the business works. And this team is using this concept of digital experience to understand everything from website people. If you go to so visitors to your website, make sure it has the right performance, that all the components work, that it's resilient. Applications in the store where you can design your cabinets or design a kitchen. All those applications are being monitored with the same principles. The applications monitor the warehouse, or when you show up at an IKEA store to pick up something, sends information to the warehouse, and then you get it back. And they're monitoring not only, again, it's not about the servers that support the system, it's like how many times does the customer have an issue? What is the wait time from the moment that the customer says, I'm here in the parking space waiting for my furniture, and you actually get your furniture delivered to your car, right? So monitoring all those insights and monitoring every single one of the workforce teams, not only the ones using, I don't know, Office to connect, or I don't know, they might use some CRM, but even the DevOps teams, right? The DevOps team depend on technology like GitLab, or even their APM tools like Dynatrace or New Relic, which all of them are hosted in the cloud. So if they go down, they have no visibility into what's going on, and they're critical for thousands of developers to be productive. So they monitor all those things with an end user perspective in mind, with the philosophy that their goal as an IT department is not to fix the systems, but to deliver that experience to the users of technology and to empower IKEA to continue being the world's largest store. We see this also with some electronics manufacturers, with some banks. They're catching up. They're not there yet. A lot of e-commerce. E-commerce is probably a natural one. Let's see, another question. How would IT report to the business on resilience scores? So the reporting to the business could be, first, that's central digital operations center would be a great place to have joint visibility across the business, right? So if you're enabling in-traffic store payments of all these processes, everybody in the business should care about that, right? So it should be like your central monitoring system of how the business is doing, because it's all connected. And you can then establish not only SLAs, which are usually vendor-centric, or SLOs, the objectives, but again, the concept of XLAs. What's your experience objective, right? So if you say, we're going to have an experience objective that our website is going to be responsive in less than 3 seconds for users in every part of the world. We're going to monitor our customers in every one of the 50 states. Let's say if you're an American company doing business in the US. If you're a pan-European company, we're going to monitor from every one of our 40 countries and make sure that every one of our customers can visit a website in 3 seconds, and that our website is 99.99% available for them. They can accomplish the tasks that they went to the site to accomplish, or their mobile applications are also allowing them to complete the process that they want to do, whether it's buying something or filling a prescription or transferring money in the bank. And then you monitor on those and the attainment of those XLAs, and you report it in real time. And again, that's how you're connecting IT to business units and the overall business. Another question is, monitoring is already all in place and services are stabilized. How you convince the business to reinvest savings back to IT resources? And that's a great question, because today in every department, you find some savings and the finance person says, thank you very much. We'll put that into our profit line in our statements. And I think the opportunity here is to don't think as an IT person, think about as the business, and go back to that triangle that I showed at the beginning, right? And then show the opportunity that if you invest in the right monitoring systems and the right technologies, you're going to make the right innovations, how are you going to impact that triangle? Revenue, experience, and trust. And how that's going to produce more revenue to the business. As a CFO, it's not their job is not only to save money, they could save most money by just shutting down. But if you could show, look, if we make this investment of, let's say, $1 million or whatever number you have in mind in IT, in these systems, and we deliver this experience to our customers, we might see this improvement in loyalty, in repeat purchases, in et cetera, that will result in $5 million in additional business. So if you say, let's invest 1 to get 5, every CFO is gonna go for it, as long as they have a reasonable confidence that your numbers make sense. And then the last question I see is from Marcus is, we use Google 360. Is that data useful for further analysis here? Well, Google 360 is just one application, right? So yes, you can monitor the productivity of your users using Google 360. That's just one of the many applications. Like we saw in the poll, most customers have hundreds of applications. So yeah, any applications that your team has, this is really application agnostic. It's whatever tools each group has. So you have that dashboard, you can see how's finance doing versus how's my productivity team doing, or you can do it by application group, right? How are people using ERP versus people that are just using our Office applications, it would be Google or Teams or Microsoft, whatever that is. So again, to the extent that your business is dependent on digital processes and software working to operate, then this concept of user experience and a digital operations center is absolutely applicable. And I think that's all the questions we have today. So with that, I want to thank the VIB team and every attendee for your time. I sincerely hope this was useful, and we're happy to help you in any way we can. Have a fantastic rest of your week.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you so much to the Catchpoint team as well for today's information, presentation, and jam-packed agenda. With that, we'll go ahead and close out today. We want to go ahead and thank you so much for attending. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. And if you have any questions, of course, through VIB, you can always reach us at webinars@vib.tech. Thanks so much, and I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their week.
Fantastic. Cheers.
Bye, everyone.